I like to think I'm a pretty agreeable person. I'm easy to be friends with. I certainly get annoyed here or there, like whenever someone is being rude to a service worker, but generally it takes a lot to upset me. This more or less carries over to how I feel about video games, and more specifically, whether or not I decide to keep playing them. Obviously, not every game is going to strike the same chord. I have favorites, and I have preferences. You probably won't see me playing Call of Duty 37 when it releases next year, because I'll be playing Open World Survival Craft Jamboree instead. But generally, if it's inoffensive and relatively entertaining, I'm willing to overlook a game's flaws. If you don't believe me, my go-to game since 2019 has been Dead by Daylight, which, aside from being home to one of gaming's most toxic communities, is a game held together by duct tape and a dream. Recently, I've been spending a lot of time playing Echoes of the Plum Grove, a cozy farming game akin to Stardew Valley or Disney Dreamlight Valley. The major difference here is that while those games take place in valleys, this game takes place in a grove. Oh, and also you can die. The reason I'm making this video is because, despite having put many hours into it, I'm not really sure how I feel about Echoes of the Plum Grove. I don't know, Steam. Would I recommend the game to other players? As much as I want to leave a thoughtful review, I'm not sure I can accurately summarize my thoughts in a couple written paragraphs. So, I'm gonna do what every other YouTuber does, and make a rambling video essay on a niche topic. So what is it? Developed by Unwound Games, a team of 2 people, which is incredibly impressive, Echoes of the Plum Grove is a survival farming game set in the 18th century. Like other farming games, you grow seasonal crops, befriend the locals, get married, and build an aesthetically pleasing farm. Unlike other farming games, you can and will eventually die. Maybe you'll starve, maybe you'll get sick, or maybe you'll just get so old that you turn into dust. The point is, you're gonna die, so you better have someone to take care of your farm when you go. You begin the game on a ship with your best friend in the whole dang world, Timothy Tweed. Together, you're sailing to a new land to start a new life. Unfortunately, fate has other plans. A terrible shipwreck claims the lives of everyone aboard, including Timothy. As the only survivor, you wash up on the shores of Honeywood, get nursed back to health, and adopt a plot of land in exchange for weekly tax payments, which eventually become irrelevant. The mayor walks off, and you begin your new life of clearing weeds and being poor. Oh god, what do I do? The way this game begins is not at all new player friendly. It's honestly daunting. After all, if you die with no one to take over your farm, you lose. As a standard, you're given some tools, food, and seeds to start out with, but as you begin to familiarize yourself with the town, its residents, and the game's mechanics in general, your hunger meter slowly drains, and you start to worry about starving to death. You can always buy something to eat from townsfolk, provided you haven't spent all your money already. And if you have, just hunt down the fisher and buy the fishing rod that breaks after 20 uses. If its durability gets too low, just look for the blacksmith, and they'll repair it for a fee. Just make sure you steer clear of anyone with smallpox on the way there. How am I supposed to get cozy when I'm constantly stressing about food, money, and dying? The game has a built-in tutorial section in the form of a textual guide you can access at your leisure. While most of the game is self-explanatory, if you're really having a hard time, it does a pretty good job explaining everything. Regardless, once you play for a couple hours and start to get your bearings, it stops being a horror game and becomes the relaxing, casual experience it promises. But I'm not exaggerating when I say this game starts off brutal. I don't know if it's a guaranteed event or random chance, but by the start of my second week, a quarter of my town had already died from smallpox, including the mayor. I was honestly hoping with the mayor dead I wouldn't have to deal with taxes anymore, but the game just elects a new mayor, so I guess taxes really are inevitable. Thankfully, if you don't want to deal with smallpox and taxes, you don't have to. The game has a plethora of accessibility settings, allowing you to customize your experience. You can slow down or fully turn off aging if you'd like, and if you want everyone to stop walking around like they just destroyed a buffet and need to lie down for a couple hours, you can turn off visible pregnancy as well. This displeases the guard! My biggest issue with Whispers of the Pear Cove is that so much of it feels slow and tedious. I first felt it at the literal beginning of the game, when I went to plant and water my crops for the first time. Clicking makes your character slowly walk over to a plot, and they won't complete the action until coming to a full stop. Now do this 30 times. And now imagine doing this 10 hours from now when you have more than 30 plots. Not a great first impression. Since the game takes place in the 1700s, there are no sprinklers to buy or upgrades to eventually make this process faster or automatic later on. Thankfully, there were no child labor laws back then either, so once you adopt or have a child, you can force them to water your crops instead. At some point, I figured out you could use WASD in space to plant and water much more efficiently, but it sort of feels like trying to shine a turd without getting poo on your hands. The default walking speed is just slightly too slow. Not slow enough for me to get majorly upset, but slow enough that I often forget where I'm going before I get there. Pick up the pace! I have 20 loaves of bread to buy. There are fast travel points throughout Honeywood, which is a nice quality of life feature and saves a lot of time, but there's only a couple, and some of them seem to be placed in spots that are deliberately far away from the thing you want to fast travel to. I guess this is to make potions more appealing, since many of them are a direct form of fast travel, but I don't think the Home Sweet Home potion is that much better than just going here and walking right for a couple seconds. The passage of time also feels really slow. This isn't a problem unique to Eclipse of the Plumber's Crack, but it doesn't feel like there's enough interesting stuff to do where the time seems to fly by. 1 hour in-game is 1 minute in real time, meaning that a full game day could last around 24 minutes. Just like in real life, you need to sleep to avoid dying of exhaustion. So in practice, depending on how long you choose to stay awake, a full day is closer to 15 minutes or so. In my experience, these days play out one of two ways. A, you spend a couple minutes tending to your crops and oop, it's dark outside, time to go to bed. Or B, you head into town, buy some food, shake some trees, catch some fish, go mining, and take a hike through the forest all before noon. Strangely, seasons in this game are only 3 weeks long, almost as if they had to remove a week to prevent things from progressing too slowly. But after playing for a while, I definitely agree that an extra week of winter would have made me claw my eyes out. As I said before, Ectoplasm of the Plush Ghost just doesn't have enough to do. This is especially true of winter, which, like most games with rotating seasons, is the designated challenging season of the game. In survival games like Don't Starve, winter is challenging but not boring. The world changes, but the gameplay remains mostly the same. In farming games, however, winter is fundamentally boring because it prevents you from, well, farming. At least in Stardew Valley, you can spend winter boosting your friendship with villagers, or in the Mines or Skull Cavern, or even fishing. You can't really do any of this in Issues of the Thumb Drive. By the time winter rolls around, you're probably already swapping spit with everyone in town, and there's a good chance your social stat is already maxed out. Unlike Stardew Valley, the mines aren't randomly generated. They're a once-a-day in-and-out kind of thing. Fishing is an option, but most of the fish vanish in winter, making it virtually pointless and a major time sink. While I'm on the topic, the fishing minigame is really bad. After hooking a fish, you sort of just follow this line with your movement keys until reaching the fish. Obviously it's supposed to represent reeling in a fishing line, but the way it's presented looks more like you're chasing after a fish with the rod itself. It's not very fun and it just kinda looks silly, but I'm also someone who actually likes the Stardew Valley fishing minigame, so feel free to ball up my opinion and throw it in the garbage. What was I saying? Oh, right, there's not enough stuff to do. By the end of my first year, I'd pretty much experienced all there was to experience, and my focus switched from playing casually to achievement hunting. I'd already unlocked a good chunk of achievements just from playing, and the remaining ones were pretty typical completion objectives. Grow every crop, cook every meal, you know the ones. I usually enjoy achievement hunting, but switching gears as an excuse to continue playing doesn't inspire much confidence. Much like a pastry about to be eaten by Paul Hollywood, the villagers in this game are underbaked and lack any flavor. They kind of remind me of Animal Crossing villagers, in that while they all look different, they have the same generic, repetitive dialogue. Each villager has a set of traits meant to influence their personality, but all that changes is which set of dialogue they're programmed to say, and whether or not they have angry eyes. The only major difference between villagers is what they have available to trade, which is influenced by their occupations and hobbies. Blacksmiths sell tools and nails, and bakers sell flour and bread. Hobbies are barely worth mentioning, half of them are purely cosmetic, and the other half don't sell anything interesting. Oh, you're into bug catching? Thank you sincerely for this selection of dragonflies and ladybugs. I do like trading with children though. They're always carrying handfuls of dirt and sand, which is hilarious and accurately portrays what a kid would realistically be holding on to. This pleases the guard. I'm a really big fan of the Paper Mario inspired 2D art style. The villager and animal designs are simple and cartoony, and collectible items have this thick black outline which gives them a cute sticker-like appearance. The two-dimensional style does come with some interesting quirks, however. The camera is always front-facing, meaning things in the foreground consistently block those in the background, and the ability to rotate placeable items highlights their flatness. But overall, the style is a fun choice, and it fits really well with the aesthetic of the game. While mostly understated, there's also a magical component to enchiladas of the grimy stove that feels right at home. You can brew potions, trade with mermaids, chat with ghosts, and even adopt a rainbow goat if you so desire. None of this is present enough to feel out of place, but it adds a bit of charming whimsy to what's otherwise a relatively bland setting. I know it's 2025 and it's becoming more and more common, but it's always refreshing when a game casually plays with gender expression. Players can choose their pronouns, and characters aren't bound to gender-conforming hairstyles or outfits. Both players and NPCs can marry regardless of gender, and while adoption is an option, men can get pregnant too. Equality win. Surprisingly, inventory management benefits from the game's general lack of meaningful upgrades and progression. At the beginning of Stardew Valley, carrying anything more than 2 dandelions is unthinkable until you buy a larger backpack. Prosecco of the Purple Grapes, however, gives you access to a huge inventory at the very start. Imagine how many dandelions I could carry. It's still prone to messiness, but being able to carry more stuff is always a plus. The game has a lot of familiar mechanics, but its strongest and most unique feature is its family system. Because death comes for us all, it's essential to get married and have kids to preserve your family line, and so you can keep playing when your character inevitably passes away. Villagers also follow this logic, creating some wild family trees that are cool to look at. The initial set of villagers inhabiting Honeywood is the same for everyone, but once people start having kids and dying off, new villagers are generated, and your town becomes completely unique. Even though the villagers themselves are boring cardboard cutouts, the inherent randomness of it all is really exciting. I suppose it's no more complicated than how The Sims generates children, but it's fun to see which generic traits are passed down to your kids, as is the anticipation of your children becoming adults. Who will they marry? Where will they work? Will you have to use the new U potion on them to continue your line of beautiful bearded sons? While the family system is really neat, it's certainly not perfect. Another victim of the game's general slowness, it took around 50 hours for me to finally die of old age. And when I took over as my son Rhett, it felt like starting over in a really irritating way. For instance, one of the few achievements I still needed was the Skillful Legacy achievement, earned upon reaching the max level in every skill. I was really close to achieving this before kicking the bucket, but since every character has their own set of skills, switching to Rhett set me back quite a bit. Sure, it's better than starting over completely, but skills level up way too slowly for this to be anything but annoying. Since I didn't really have anything else to do, playing as Rhett mostly consisted of shaking trees and cooking bread for this achievement, which was boring. Maybe this isn't the best way to approach a casual game, and obviously I could have done something else. But in terms of new things to do or goals to achieve, shaking trees and cooking bread was my best option. I eventually got so fed up with waiting that I started speeding through days in order to get the last few achievements, literally the opposite of stopping to smell the roses. So what do we think? If I thought Echoes of the Plum Grove was legitimately bad, I wouldn't bother making a video about it. I'd just write an angry review and call it a day. While I certainly have a lot of criticisms and backhanded compliments, I don't want to give the impression that I dislike this game. It's overall a very cute, charming experience. It's just too slow and uneventful to really hold my interest. The art style is fun, and it has an inviting, wholesome aesthetic, but it's hard to get invested in randomly generated characters with hollow personalities. The family system is such a great idea that makes the game stand out from others, but it feels largely underutilized and underdeveloped. Did I enjoy my time with Echoes of the Plum Grove? Well, I think so. I'm pretty happy with how my farm turned out, and my family tree is full of beautiful bearded sons. That said, I don't see myself returning to it anytime soon. While I might visit the Muppy family farm every now and then, there's nothing left for me to do. The game has received a handful of updates since its release, but they're relatively small in scope. Moreover, it's not in early access, so I don't foresee any major gameplay changes happening. All that said, I think the Unwound Games duo has done a great job bringing their vision to life. If you don't mind a casual slowness and dialogue that's begging to be skipped, give the game a try. With enough time and patience, you too can raise a family of beautiful bearded sons.